Thank you to the ANZ team. Thanks to all of you for giving me this opportunity to come and speak with you this morning. My name is Ashesh Badani. I run the Cloud Platforms group at Red Hat. I've been doing that for a few years. And when we first spoke, the team said, look, why don't you come talk about changing the way we work? And I said, that's a big topic, right? Especially at 9 in the morning. So what I'm going to try to do is sort of give you sort of my sense of how I've seen change come about at organizations that you would think would struggle with change. Perhaps you'll see some of what you're doing within that, and perhaps there's some ideas and lessons that we've learned and we can learn together that will help you. So let's start with UPS. I'm sure many of you are familiar with UPS, one of the largest logistics packaging delivery company in the world. They're responsible for maybe about 21 million shipments a day. And what they've been really thinking about is trying to understand how they take their monolithic architecture, these applications they've built over many, many years, be able to maintain them, support them, but at the same time innovate faster. Essentially take processing to the edge. How can they improve the way they schedule packages, deliver them, increase the efficiency of routes that they have in place today with regard to sort of changing information, be able to do that quickly. Right? Because every customer wants personalization. They want to be able to make sure that they can see where their packages are, be able to maybe change them based on if they're on vacation or they're traveling somewhere, and then have an infrastructure that can respond to those kinds of changes. So taking advantage of microservices-based technologies, taking advantage of a platform we've provided them, they've been able to go through and do that. And they're not done. They're using analytics now to take that all the way to the edge to do processing much, much closer in distribution centers. That are closest to the actual customers and where these packages will go from. Volkswagen, also going through change, right? So someone we've been working with for a little while, which has really been thinking about being able to innovate faster, taking advantage of autonomous vehicle driving. The challenge that they were facing was trying to understand how they can run massive numbers of simulations when it's not time-consuming and costly to do so. The reason for that is traditionally, when they've put together simulation scenarios and software, they've really had to do a lot of integration between hardware and software to be able to run that for all the different vehicles, all the different scenarios that they want to go off and simulate. It was time-consuming and expensive, and they couldn't take advantage of the numbers of changes they want to do with regard to incoming stimuli information coming their way. They also want to make sure that they were able to do this at greater scale than ever possible, taking advantage of NVIDIA GPUs running underneath. So they decided to go and say, look, why don't we run this in container-based environments off of our platform, off NVIDIA, and be able to run as many scenarios they wanted, run these simulations at the scale that they've wanted to. Change with a company called Emirates NBD, which is a financial service institution in the Middle East, going through a 4-year digital transformation. And the point of the slide really is not to talk about the fact that financial service companies are in the business of providing WhatsApp applications, but really understanding who their customers are, being able to change to match where those customers are at. So if their customers, and of course their demographics are different, they've got a lot of folks in a much younger age demographic that they want to reach, folks who are very, very focused on digital engagement and social media, and be able to sort of communicate with them through the places where they're at. Being able to go off and deliver a WhatsApp-based application was really important for them, for that. And so they were able to put together a platform that can run a WhatsApp-based environment in less than a week and go off and deliver that to their customers. So that's change that companies as diverse as UPS, Volkswagen, and Emirates have been going through, right? And each of these have sort of thought through what it means with regard to the organizations that they have, the culture that they have. I think Max started talking a little bit about kind of the notion of people, process, and technology that they've got to work with to be able to do that. The recognition all these companies have is these interactions that they have with customers are hybrid in nature by their very design, right? So there's a direct physical element, right? If you're in financial services, that's obvious, right? But whether you're in retail or anything else, digital engagement is critical. A lot of customers are transacting with you over the web, in a mobile fashion, and then being able to extend out who you can work with through a marketplace of APIs, to be able to have third parties or partners come your way. And so being able to craft an environment that can span the direct of physical, digital, and APIs is critical for how you're going to go out and grow. And it doesn't really matter what kind of company you're in. So I can give you a couple examples from the US, right? There's a company called Untuckit that's in the business of providing you shirts, a company called Warby Parker that specializes in eyeglasses. All of these companies started off as completely cloud native. Right? There was no physical engagement whatsoever. And then they realized, well, if people are going to have to come in and sort of do eye exams, well, they'll need a place to go to. Well, we should open up some stores. Right? But there's a complete integration between the experience that happens in the stores and digital, and then, of course, being able to add third parties or additional ancillary products and services around them. Right? So there's a confluence that's coming through, regardless of where you start from. If you start directly from the physical side of it or from digital, being able to kind of put all those worlds together. The challenge then is around all the complications that occur around it. So what I've shown you here is a snapshot of a trail map that CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, puts out. And what this is just, it's hard for you to read, right? And it's hard for you to read if you're at the back, and that's by design. The point is that there's several sets of categories or areas where you're probably thinking about how do I go solve the monitoring problem? How do I solve the provisioning problem? What do I choose from orchestration and automation perspective? And there's multiple choices in each of them. And there's constant change happening in each of them. So we talked about this notion of changing the way we work, right? And the tools that we have in front of us today, are more plentiful than they've ever been before. Max talked a little about, today is the least amount of change that we'll ever see in the rest of our life, right? And this is a visual representation of that. My guess is if you see this chart maybe a year from now, right, there'll be even more on it, even harder for you to figure out and read. And so our focus is around what does hybrid cloud innovation look like? Be able to work with customers who are working across this hybrid world, dealing with the innovation that they have in place. The portfolio we've built is designed for the hybrid cloud, right? So regardless of, when you ask yourself, well, where do I want to run my infrastructure? Do I want to run it in, we call them 4 footprints, right? A physical one, virtualized, private, or public? Do I want to take advantage of software-defined storage environment, regardless of, what actual physical storage or virtual storage I pick? Should I have some kind of platform that allows me to run a variety of different runtimes on it, integrate with all the different other environments that I have in place? Be able to think about development environments that can plug into this, give me flexibility of the number of tools, right? We saw the plethora of choices that are out there for the developer. And then also be able to provide greater amounts of automation, right? Which is going to be a key theme for us as we go forward, right? Greater amounts of automation that we can introduce to customers to be able to take advantage of these in different environments, and then, of course, be able to manage them at scale. That's a lot, right? That's a lot to take in, right? And that's sort of what we focused on fundamentally. And we'll spend a little bit more time kind of going through what that means for us. The basis of these platform changes that we're going through, the basis of providing you an abstraction that can span these different environments is Red Hat OpenShift for us. And I know there's many of you who are users of that in the audience today, and yet many more thinking about the value this can provide. And the key point really to make is that this platform is built to ensure that it runs consistently regardless of the underlying environment that you've picked, right? We've got our partners, Microsoft here. We'll talk a little bit more, about the work we're doing with them. But in the same fashion, we're working to make sure that that's true across the board. And when someone's asked us a question, I'll just answer it before it even gets asked, is, well, will that change with IBM? There's a commitment from IBM to say we'd like Red Hat to work in the ways that they've been working going forward. Continue working with all these different partners, these different environments, to provide the value that we do to customers. The core of what we build on, Red Hat is Linux. Containers are Linux. Containers are Linux because what is a container? Containers a Linux process. We take advantage of the fact that we've got the most successfully and widely deployed commercial enterprise Linux-based operating system in the planet to build on that to deliver you the abstraction that spans all of these environments. RHEL is in 90% of enterprises across the board running mission-critical applications today. And so being able to say, if you as a customer have tested against this, have certified on it, verified, being able to take advantage of the applications that run there, and run them then in a hybrid cloud fashion, we think is a powerful way to help you change and advance and approach this next generation of technology evolution that we're going through. Applications fundamentally run the business, right? Ultimately, infrastructure serves a goal. The goal is faster development cycles, greater release of services that you're putting out in the marketplace, right? Becoming much more agile, embracing DevOps, doing that in a secure fashion, but fundamentally increasing the velocity of how you can deliver your applications. Our middleware portfolio, which many of you are likely using, has all been ensured that it is integrated to run within the platform, right? And we ensure that those integrations are kept up as new releases of the platform come out, as well as actual releases of the application. And then that helps us make OpenShift the standard for hybrid cloud. Now, the part that I haven't talked about is how do we enable the ecosystem of application services, right, that come outside our own orbit, how they play in that. And I'll spend some time talking through that, right? But I just want to make sure that you understood that everything that we're building in our portfolio is built for hybrid cloud, and we build on all the investments that we've made over these years. Kubernetes and cloud experience matters. Why is that? So, how many folks in this room have been following the container Kubernetes journey? Quick show of hands. Wow, a good number, right? So, if you have been, you've probably already sort of realized that the rate of change in this community is rapid. First release happened in 2015, right? And now we've gone through multiple releases, coming out almost at the rate of once a quarter. So let me ask a question, right? So let's say this is a Rip Van Winkle moment, right? You entered the world in 2015 at the first release of Kubernetes. Fitos, you're laughing. I will ask you this question, okay? So they won't be that funny after. And you went off to sleep, and you woke up in 2019, okay? So you saw the first release of Kubernetes, you're excited, you're wowed, you're like, this is great, there's some rough edges, it's only going to get better, and you popped out at 2019. What percentage of the code base, Fitos, do you think has changed? 20%? Okay, any other guesses? Go ahead. 90, right? 90% of the code base has turned. Right, nice try, Fitos. We'll have another one for you later. 90% of the code base has turned over that period of time. The point of that is, one, well, that is pretty amazing because that just shows you the amount of innovation that's happening in this environment, right? Which is great. Allows you to take advantage of all of that change that's happening. The flip side of that, which I'm sure at least half the room is thinking, is, wow, I've got to manage through all of that change that's happening, all the instability that creates in my environment, all of the applications I got to keep testing to ensure that they're running in the way that they're supposed to in a consistent, reliable fashion. And what we've done from our perspective at Red Hat is to work with the community to ensure that we're introducing what we'll call our enterprise class features or requirements that are coming from customers that are really, really important, right? So ensure that when you're using Docker-based containers, right, that there's a standard container runtime and image and packaging format. To ensure that there's role-based access control, because that's really important for your security team, otherwise they aren't going to go off and improve this. To give you choices of different external storage that you can take advantage of, right, because you aren't wedded to only a few choices that exist in the marketplace. To give you the ability to take advantage of new innovation that's happening in underlying hardware via integration with platforms like NVIDIA's. To give you this notion of custom resources, right, or CRDs, to extend out the Kubernetes platform to be able to lifecycle third-party applications. We'll talk about that some more. To constantly keep working on talking about, how do we make this platform as expansive as possible to take advantage of the different diversity of applications and services that are in front of you, right? And this is work that we've been doing in the community, everything in the open over this period of time. But that's only one part of it, right? Because that's the work we're doing upstream in community to ensure that innovation comes that's based on requirements that we get from enterprise customers like yourselves. Then the question is, well, what's the expertise we can develop that we can give you? We consistently get customers to come and say, I'm running the platform at scale in my environment. What can I do to make my operations team more efficient? Hey, I love this SRE culture. I'd like to introduce that in my environment. How can you help me with that? And so we actually manage, on behalf of our customers, an offering called OpenShift Dedicated, right, where we run the OpenShift platform for customers, manage all the life cycling of the actual platform, and the customer's only response for the applications. On the same hand, we give customers the opportunity to self-manage across every environment, right? Whether it's a physical one running directly on bare metal, with more and more customers are choosing to do, especially as they see the advantage that containers give them over just running in a virtualized environment. They've got big investments in virtualized environments like VMware, being able to support that, integrate and test against that, and of course give you a choice of public cloud, right? So whether it's Microsoft, Amazon, Google, or others to come in the future. At the same time, we also have the opportunity to provide value-added services or much deeper integration, for example, with partners like Microsoft, where we have a joint offering. We jointly support and manage an OpenShift-based platform. So you as a customer can take advantage of all the benefits of running in a public cloud like Azure, but at the same time take advantage of the OpenShift-based abstraction hybrid cloud platform that we make available to you, and with direct integration into the Azure console. And of course, with IBM Cloud, the work we're doing with the IBM team to make that available as well in a managed fashion out to our customers. So the expertise that we create in that process is something that we work on making sure that we can transfer to you, as well as introducing it into the platform. I'll pause there. Introducing the expertise that we find into the platform. The reason I say that is because the greater amounts of automation that we can bring into the platform, the more powerful it becomes as an abstraction for you. You cannot fundamentally keep up with the change unless you spend lots of time and energy doing that. And then you ask yourself the question, well, is that valuable to you as a user of the technology? And if it's not, can you make the actual platform, the technology underlying where you want to run your application services smarter to be able to deal with that? That's the work that we're working through in OpenShift 4, and I'll spend some time talking about that. But the reason we have some of that expertise to be able to do that, right, is thanks to many of you in the room. We've got a lot of adoption of the actual platform. You can see the numbers from a customer perspective. I think the numbers are well over 1,200 now. And the market share we've been able to get in the marketplace, right, because we've been able to work across all these different environments, support customers on their journey through the change. And as we've done that, what we've realized is enterprise Kubernetes, right, is just almost the table stakes, right, the base layer that we or anyone else in the marketplace has to be able to support, right? So at this point in time, you should be able to get some kind of Kubernetes-based offering. I think in CNCF last we checked was over 50 certified distributions of an underlying container-based platform to be able to run these environments in. Now the value starts in all the things that you can do around it. How can we provide greater automated operations, right? So the platform can upgrade in a much more seamless fashion. The experience of upgrading the platform feels like being able to upgrade your mobile phone, right? And being able to do that at your own time and pace. How can we give you a container-optimized OS directly as part of the platform so you don't have to go off and procure one separately? If you do want to use RHEL, you still can, but at the same time, give you a lightweight one that moves in conjunction with the platform so we can give you full stack automation across the board. Providing additional cluster services, application services, and developer services. Because fundamentally, being able to manage running those clusters that have been distributed, being able to have a diversity of applications that you can provide to your developers, and being able to create greater developer productivity is ultimately what's going to create the greatest amount of value for you. So we believe the combination of the innovation that we can tap into and the hybrid cloud that we can allow for you to run in our environment will change the way you work. If it hasn't already, it will change even more. The investments that we make are spanning across all these, and I put up some links to give you some sense of the amount of productivity that we're seeing. So first is the basis, right, which is the hybrid infrastructure platform, right? Obviously it gives you greater TCO, especially as there's greater maturity with regard to the stability and robustness of the platform. And we're seeing some areas of increasing interest, edge deployments. More and more customers are looking to say, look, how can I run this closer and closer to my customers? Telcos, right? So for all the folks who are in the telco business in the room, being able to say, we've been in the journey to virtualize the network functions, and the next stage for us is to be able to containerize those network functions, and then be able to deliver, the next generation 5G-based network at greater scale, delivering greater speed and throughput than ever before. When we look at hybrid application services, it's all about, how can I make sure the greatest amount of productivity from an application delivery perspective is provided to you. We'll talk a little bit more about kind of the increasing interest around AI and ML workloads, running analytics at greater scale, right? Regardless of what kind of company you're in, right? Definitely financial services, but also in emerging sectors that they're all looking to see how can we take advantage of the greater amounts of data that we have access to take advantage of machine learning models to become more productive. And then increasingly take advantage of technologies like serverless to be able to run this at scale. And finally, I'll spend a couple of minutes just talking about developer throughput, right? Being able to increase the amount of productivity for developers, integrate with commonly used tools, languages, and frameworks to take advantage of the innovation that's happening across the board. So the basis of the hybrid infrastructure platform is being able to say, look, I can run these clusters in a distributed fashion, right? If I'm going to be in the hybrid cloud business, I'm going to be in the hybrid cloud business, which means I might run some in my own data center. So maybe I'll manage a data center myself, maybe a third party manages it for me. Some of it might be in bare metal. I might be running applications in NVIDIA-based environment, be able to run it on x86, as well as make sure some partners doing that on my behalf. I could be taking advantage of an OpenStack-based private cloud. I could be running applications in Azure, AWS, or Google, and then be able to say, look, I want to run my applications and see what clusters are running in any of these environments, what's the health of them, what storage and networking associated with them, how can I provision, deprovision, and manage the lifecycle of them. Being able to give you the opportunity to sort of have clusters that you can manage at scale in a hybrid cloud environment is extremely powerful, an area of investment for us, both within Red Hat and, of course, making sure we're doing that in the community. Which leads us to the next part of the journey, which I think is really, really interesting, right? Is this notion of a connected customer, right? Or connected environment. And by connected, I don't mean connected, all the time, but connected to be able to essentially provide health into Red Hat, to be able to proactively ensure that we can provide value to you as a customer when you're running these clusters at scale in this hybrid environment. We've had 4 months since the general availability of our OpenShift 4-based platform, 11 Z-Stream releases, right? So, those are coming out fairly quickly. Almost 200 bugs fixed, and 207 CEs released across this environment. 20% of bugs fixed to date have been from information obtained through telemeter, right? So now this is starting to become extremely powerful. Clusters are running, right? And companies are deploying mission-critical applications. We get information to say cluster health is down for some reason or some combination of reasons. We're able to automatically then take a look at what those issues are, fix that, be able to do a Z-Stream release, push that over the air directly to you, and then you decide if you're ready to receive that and be able to upgrade your environments, or you want to do it at the right time that's right for you. The next step to that, and we just saw that recently happen with a customer, is we got the information. We realized there was a problem with a specific set of clusters because it was configured in a certain fashion by the customer. We proactively opened a support ticket, went off and fixed the problem, notified the customer the problem had been fixed, and then provide some recommendations on what to do going forward. Take that forward, right? You can imagine at some point in time, we'll just proactively start fixing those problems and make them available to you, right? So now what happens is you have a public cloud-like experience, right, of running your environments at scale in a hybrid cloud fashion, but you take advantage of all the characteristics a public cloud can start providing you, right, through telemetry that we can work on and then respond proactively for you, right? So extremely powerful, we believe, right, and starts now delivering value to you as users of the platform that goes beyond just using only the base Kubernetes that you have. I started talking a little bit about kind of some of the investments we're making around a technology called operators. How many in the room familiar with what operators are? Oh, great. So there's a fair number that are, right? So for the others who are not, this is an extremely powerful concept, right? This is the idea of saying, I've got databases that sit outside my environment, for example, and I use databases. I could use any other class of application here. But I've got databases that sit outside an environment. I containerize them. I run them within my platform. And then I want to make sure that they're managed in a cloud-native fashion within the platform. How can I provide a set of rules, instructions, intelligence, automation into the platform that allows for me to be able to say, if application that's using this database goes down, update in the following fashion. Here's how the life cycle is going to work for this going forward. And then being able to do that for every application that third parties, right, ISVs or even custom applications you have that can have operators that we can provide. So this is a community-based technology, operatorhub.io. There are several, including the public cloud providers, who have operators that they've built that integrate directly into Kubernetes. And then there's a certification process for the ones that work with our environment. And now, what's also starting to become more and more powerful is companies are saying, well, what I'd like to do is be able to start putting on greater variety of workloads onto the platform. One area that we've seen increasing amount of interest on is around AI and ML. And that's increasingly become a buzzword, I think. I think the bigger, if you will, opportunity for us as well as for all of you is to say, well, what classes of these workloads are really interesting to me? What applications, what frameworks, what environments do I want to make sure that I can work with? And then be able to run them at scale in a container-based platform to take advantage of the same automation that you're now deploying consistently across the world. There's work that we've done on the development side as well. Integrations with, for example, VS Code and JetBrains and Eclipse is extremely powerful because that now ensures that we are integrating with the developer in an environment of his or her choice. And that's great to see. Being able to provide a web-based IDE, a collaborative workspace that we can provide to customers is extremely powerful. Provide a desktop environment for local development through code-ready containers. Again, extremely powerful for the folks who want to increase developer productivity, use the same platform on their desktops that they work with when it comes to deployment as well. So being able to sort of have, cloud native or Kubernetes native CI/CD via the Tekton project is, again, an area that we're working with. And the plethora of these technologies that we're working through will really focus on increasing the actual productivity of developers who want to deploy these applications across the hybrid cloud without realizing that they're necessarily integrating with these technologies. So I've got a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to make sure I sort of closed, bringing up what I think, across the industry, we all work with, right? Especially as we deal with change and changing in the way we work. This is a quote from a famous psychiatrist, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Some of you may have heard of her. And she says, the most beautiful people I've known are those who've known trials, have known struggles, have known loss, and found their way out of the depths. And I say this not to sort of have a downer message early in the morning, but I say this to sort of bring to light struggles folks can have, as we change. And I want to say the struggles are real, right, across every organization that's looking to change, right, including all the ones that we worked with over time. And what puts light to me for these challenges that we face is a story I've read, and I'm sure many of you have heard of this before, but it goes like this. So a man finds a cocoon with an emperor moth in it, and he decides to bring it home. And he brings it home, and after a few days, he sees a crack in the cocoon. And he said, well, that's going to be pretty special, right? Because I'm now going to be able to see a beautiful butterfly emerging out of this, right? He said, well, that's going to be interesting. So he spends a few hours with the cocoon watching the crack open up. And after a few hours, he starts seeing a little moth trying to emerge. And it's struggling hard to open itself up from the cocoon to get out. And he sees that struggle, and he says, you know what, maybe I can help, right? I'm sitting outside, and I like to see how this story plays out. Maybe I can help this process. And he opens up that crack. And out comes the moth, and the moth's got this swollen body and shriveled wings, right? It's like, okay, well, that's, the sort of transformation process that we go through. And this is now going to, over some time, become a beautiful butterfly, right? Spread its wings and fly. And guess what happens? It never does. It spends the rest of its life becoming a moth who's trying to become a butterfly and can't And the reason for that is that struggle for the moth to get out of the cocoon is nature's way of ensuring that the excess fluid that's within the body of the moth gets spread to its wings. And so that fight, that struggle for freedom, for change, for transformation is critical to the moth for it to become a butterfly. In your haste, or in the haste of this person, to help the moth go out and not have the struggle, didn't actually help the moth become the butterfly. So we should work together to change, and change together. Recognize that there are struggles and there are challenges that we will all go through. And if we ensure that we have empathy and we work with each other, taking advantage of the tools, the technologies, the processes that we have in place, but most importantly, the people, then I'm sure we'll be successful in innovating together. Thank you.